attorney who, there we have microphone would be good too. My guest today requires no introduction. I'm going to get to him in just a moment. My friend and attorney Mark Geragos. You know him from all the years of commentary on various news outlets and his work with defense law. He has been doing Reasonable Doubt with Adam Carolla for quite some time, and now he and I want to do some things together. And so today will be day one of our streaming debut. We'll get right to it after this. Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. You have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. I think everyone knows the next medical crisis could be just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of another pandemic or something much more routine like a tick bite. You and your family need to be prepared. That's where the wellness company comes in. You know the wellness company. We have their physicians on like Dr. McCullough frequently. The wellness company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy.
It's a safety net. It's an insurance policy
absolutely.
That you hope you're not going to
100%.
need, but if you need it, you sure as heck are going to wish you had it if you need it.
Be ready for anything. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. The medical emergency kit provides a guidebook to aid in the safe use of all these life-saving medications. From anthrax to tick bites to COVID-19, the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit is exactly what you need to have on hand to be prepared. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next. Go to drdrew.com/TWC. That is DRDREW.com/TWC to get 10% off today. Just click on that link. And so let's welcome my guest, Mark Geragos. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and it kind of was a throwback. I came up the back stairs where my son used to sneak up into your house back in high school.
So we are in our home studio, which this used to be the playroom where the boys all congregated particularly.
Do you know that this room used to, I'll tell one story. My wife, Jake's mother, did not like him playing whatever it was. Xbox.
World of Warcraft, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, no. The other one, the Call of Duty. That was a big game in here.
And so one day, Jake comes home and it's gone. And his video player is gone. And he came up the back stairs a couple of weeks later and came over, and here was Douglas and Jordan
playing on his game.
On his game. He had given it, Paulette had given it to Susan.
Thank you, Paulette. Thank you. Well done.
Yeah.
But if Jake would come around and play.
We still have it.
Yeah.
We still have it somewhere.
His video player?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's too funny. Was she punishing him, or was it just too much?
The whole idea of him playing a video game,
didn't like it.
It was anathema.
So she didn't know how much of that was going on here, evidently.
Yeah.
But Mark and I known each other since high school.
Yes.
We played football against each other. We had rival high schools, that kind of thing, since way back. And then you started working at K-Rock as a concert promoter.
Which I was ahead of you on the K-Rock.
Yep, ahead of me.
By about, 5-6 years?
I had to go to medical school first.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was doing K-Rock while in law school. So.
Yeah, and so we had this crazy parallel path. And then your wife went to Westridge with my sister.
Right.
Exactly. And then they became friends. And then I think that's how we all got back together again.
And then we've had this crazy existence with Douglas, who's your oldest triplet.
Yep.
Although we just saw your youngest triplet.
Yeah, two came by.
Yep. But Douglas and Jake have had this kind of parallel friendship as well. So
since they were 3, they outdid us, actually.
They certainly did. They certainly did, and still see each other with some frequency.
How is his business going? Should we promote that, by the way?
Yeah, Dirty Taco. If you're in Grand Central, stop by. Jake is over there, and he's got some incredible... He's actually now got a taco masi, which they've taken...
What?
Yes. They've taken the sushi idea and put a
Tacoized it.
Tacofied it. Tacofied it, and they do. It's sold out every time they do it, and they do it a couple of times a month.
So it's in the downstairs area of Grand Central Station. You're going to have to wait in line. It's a big deal.
Right.
And we watched Jake come on as a chef through the Clock Tower and then Queen's Yard.
Queen's Yard, exactly. And he had another place that was in between, whose name, the Musket Room, which was a Michelin star. He was under a Michelin star chef. So he's had quite a little career.
He was well thought of. They at Queen's Yard, and there was no fool in there. So
yeah, well, Queen's Yard was adjacent to where you were.
Yes,
at
where we're living.
Time.
That's right.
Or still.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what did you?
The one thing how every time I see you, Susan was asking as a good producer, she wanted to know, well, are you going to talk about this? And Em was saying, I got to do this. I said, the last thing you need is to program Drew and I, because we'll never get to what you program us for.
Right.
Because I've always got questions. And here's my question.
Okay, here we go.
So over the weekend, I was watching a little football, and I saw Donald Trump coming on to, I think, a South Carolina game, and getting a standing ovation. And then there was people trying to say it wasn't really standing ovation.
Then first I heard it was all boos.
Yeah.
Then I heard the boos were directed at something that happened in the game. And in fact, 12 seconds before, he'd had a standing ovation.
Yeah.
I think he had both. I think he had standing ovation followed by boos. I think that's what happened.
And I thought, wow, he's in the South.
Yeah.
The one person who is giving him, and it's not even a run for your money.
DeSantis.
And he's fallen by the wayside. It's now Nikki Haley. It's Nikki Haley territory. Clearly, he is embraced there. And then when I was talking about it, somebody was saying, well, what do you expect? It's the South. It's a red state, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I said, well, what about Madison Square Garden 2 weeks ago? Because he walked in with Tucker and with Dana White and got a standing ovation there. And then they say, well, that's just the demographic of UFC.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Which is true. I think that's a good point. But
something's going on. You don't see, and I am a self-professed dyed-in-the-wool, always voted Democrat. You don't see Joe Biden getting standing ovations. And again, in fact, you have the opposite, the chant that usually F Joe Biden.
Right.
And I wonder.
Let's go, Brandon. How dare you?
Yeah.
Let's go, Brandon.
I just wonder, as we sit here in very blue California, and a number of people that are in my bubble, so to speak, confide in me that they say, I don't understand how we're running him. Meaning Biden. That he was fantastic for the pivot, and I know that you're not supposed to talk politics, but I can't help it because
let's get into it. Let's do it. So the question is, what?
How after 4 separate indictments, 91 counts, a lawsuit that he's currently is an existential threat to his business in New York, a sexual harassment lawsuit that ended up in a $5 million damages award, and now is coming back a second time. How after all of that, when everybody thought that was it, he's done.
Yes.
How is he not done, and how is he getting standing ovations and a reception that one would not expect?
So he still could be done, right?
Could be.
One of these things could really take him out of the running. So but because that seems to be the goal of these cases, they are not. I'm not speaking on my own behalf. I'm speaking on behalf of what I think is going on. I don't think.
Don't you love that
I have to qualify everything.
You have to dance around the idea that you could try to analyze what is happening, because God forbid that you say anything, and I'll get into it in a second.
Gets taken out of context, and then boom, you said this. Yes, I said that, but in a whole different context. And that, by the way, that's other story. The Media Matters things I want to get into with you, because I have things all the time that happens to be that way, where they take out clips and they go, "Aha, you're this." And by the way, then they'll take out the part that's left out, and the other side will use that as a higher that. So it's nutty. But I think the people that have, I think that a lot of people are very frustrated with the culture And I think they blame the government for some of these cultural issues. And I think it actually started back in the Obama era, which is how you got a Trump.
Right.
Which is people.
I agree.
People were feeling bad about themselves and tired of it. I think that's what it is. It's like, I don't want to feel bad about myself. I don't want to feel bad about being a man. I don't want to feel bad about being white. I don't want to feel bad about being you fill in the blank category that has been sort of, should we say, outed recently? Sort of called on the carpet. And I've always said, look, so just to qualify my position, I've always been like, good things come out of this, because I realize I have a very Eurocentric way of seeing. I have to really watch myself all the time. It's been helpful to me to be close. I'm always trying to ascend to the truth. So to get closer to the truth is better for me. And if I have biases that get in the way of that, I want to know about it. I want to do better. But a lot of people are tired. And they're tired, and they aren't as magnanimous about it, and they start saying, I'm not a bad person. This guy's going to fight for me. I remember a South Park episode where Randy's sort of the everyman in that,
right?
And he's like, hey, that guy sounds like me. He'll fight for me. He talks like me, and I think that happened the first time. Okay, then a lot of people stayed with him, still liked him after the end of that, which is. Again, a lot of people can't even imagine that, but there's a lot of people that still liked him. And now when he gets attacked, they feel like this is all politically motivated, and therefore it has on its own merit, they can't evaluate it.
Well, and the problem is, it makes perfect sense, because what happens is there has been a flip. Whoever thought? I mean, I come home at night and I'll flip on the channels and news channels, because I'm interested in the news and so-called news, exactly.
Whatever it is now. I
will say, I turn on MSNBC, and all of a sudden they're cheerleaders for the prosecution. And I'll say, wait a second here. I'm old enough to remember when that was not. The Republicans were the law and order, and the Democrats were the ones who challenged authority, and that has flipped on its head. I listened. It shows you how. My life is somewhat shallow. I listened to the oral arguments on the gag order for Trump out of the District of Columbia.
Okay.
That was, he
was talking shit about
the court staff and the judge. Yeah. And so the way it was reported, I actually saw people saying, the court's going to, they're going to reinstate the gag order immediately at oral argument. I said, well, that's ballsy, if that's the case. I listened to it. By the way, it was all of a sudden these 3 democratically appointed judges on the Court of Appeal, they had real problems with this. This is core political speech. I'm old enough to remember when my side of the aisle believed in core political speech and was defending that.
What is core political speech?
Core political speech is his ability at a rally, Trump, to discuss the cases, to discuss that it's politically motivated, to do, by the way, what I remember doing in the 90s when I was representing Susan McDougal in the Whitewater. Yep. I was taking shots at the Office of Independent Counsel. I said this was politically motivated.
Yes.
That you were coming after the Clintons because of this. All of that now, when you flip it, is no good anymore. Now we can't do that. And now we're going to gag him. We're going to gag him a year out from the election. The election is less than a year. And we're going to gag the leading candidate in a election, which, by the way, we're prosecuting him arising out of activities and his speech in the last presidential election. The only case law that they were citing when they're doing the argument is case law that was made by the insurance commissioner who was fighting a gag order in Louisiana, I believe. It was like, well, that doesn't really seem to me to be tracking the facts of a presidential election where you're prosecuting somebody for his language on the last election.
Did his attorneys say anything?
Yeah. Oh, he had a guy who used to be either Solicitor General or Attorney General in the South. He was outstanding. Okay. And you never would have guessed that by the reporting. That's why I listened. I went onto YouTube and listened to the arguments. It was fascinating to actually hear what was happening in real time.
So you're kind of zeroing in on what I think is one of the major problems of our time, which is that reporting is not reporting anymore.
Which takes us to Media Matters. Right?
Yes, it is either opinion or really propaganda, and I do believe they think they're reporting something, but they can't get out of their own way to do the reporting, or they believe they have a different job to do than report.
Well, I will tell you, when you because I couldn't accept what I was hearing about the argument on a gag order, which is something I've been dealing with for 40 years in the law, which is gag orders generally in my cases where they're high profile cases, sometimes political, but most of the time just because there's a prurient interest. I've been fascinated with that because the last U.S. Supreme Court pronouncement on that was Shepard versus Maxwell, which was where F. Lee Bailey made his career, which was it turned into The Fugitive, and that was in the 50s. You read that opinion now, or you talk about it now, and it's almost quaint because it was the U.S. Supreme Court trying to regulate a defendant's right to a fair trial. Here, we've been flipped on its head. We're not regulating Trump's right to a fair trial. We're saying we don't want the prosecution to be behind the eight ball, or we don't want the court to be behind the eight ball. It's an amazing set of circumstances, and the reporting on it was crazy because they said it's a hot bench. Trump's lawyer was, manhandled, blah, blah, blah. I saw that. I listened to it. No, he wasn't manhandled. No, he handled the bench. And they had tough questions, but guess what? They had even tougher questions for the Office of Special Counsel. You would have to listen to the hours of the tape to understand that what you are getting fed, if you listen to it, you would understand it's not even remotely accurate.
And I would just also point out that the same people that are now flipping things on their head that way are the unmitigated fans of Big Pharma and the FBI.
Right.
These are the...
What happened? That's what I keep saying.
This is incredible.
When did the left become cheerleaders for the prosecution and law enforcement?
Law enforcement, Big Pharma, FBI, CIA, the things that my whole life they were absolutely paranoid about. And I was fighting my whole life against the right, my whole career. Right. The morning after pill is a killing a baby. No, it's not. The HPV vaccine. Oh no, can't take that. Okay, no, we're going to push that. We need that. That's cancer. And now all of a sudden, my ability to say anything is under attack from a different side. And it's this. I've become I feel like our job has become fighting for freedom all of a sudden, which is incredible.
People minimize why that is. I remember when this whole pandemic thing started, and all of a sudden I found myself in kind of co-counseling with Harmy Dillon.
I know. That to me, that was a sentinel moment for me. I went, whoa, something has changed. Our Meet Dillon, who's right of Abraham Lincoln, and Mark Geragos, who I don't think of that way at all, are getting together. Something is changing. Something is...
It was this astonishing 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I know I've talked about this a million times. And an emergency declaration. I remember, I'm old enough to remember, you are too. Emergency meant a limited period of time. Emergency didn't mean 3 years.
How about what shelter in place means?
Yeah.
That is when a nuclear weapon is incoming. Right. Shelter in place.
Well,
when the hell do mayors chant that every night? Are you kidding? Of course kids are depressed.
Remember when we were kids in elementary school?
They'd have trials, the sirens.
The sirens.
Yeah.
And you get under your table.
Yeah. Oh, no, we actually, at Arroyo Seco School right over here, we would actually file down into the basement, line up against the wall, and get in a...
That's what we did. You had to put your hands behind your head, you kneel down, you get under the desk.
Yep.
Yeah. But... That was
shelter in place.
That was shelter in place. That wasn't to go hide in your house for 2 years.
2 years. Can you imagine?
And there is absolutely no remorse for it, no apology for it.
Well, all right. So this is something I want to get into, which is this can't happen again, right? I mean, you asked about Michelle Bachmann, who I was interviewing a couple of days ago. She is worried about the World Health Organization having this authority to put us under lock and key whenever they damn well please them. And by the way, Caleb, throw up the medical emergencies of international concern graph up there. The medical emergency of international concerns were rare events, like the 1918 flu. Look at how many have happened since COVID. All of a sudden, they're all the time.
Yeah.
That blue line is the 1918 flu essentially, and then you have everything else. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of other
right. Everything gets amplified. Everything.
I'm
gets
sorry. The blue
minimized.
H1N1 is the blue one,
Yeah.
and then now all of a sudden everything's a medical emergency. Yeah, and they would have authority over all elected officials everywhere in every sovereign nation in the world. That's okay with people? We don't think that could be abused?
I just don't. I was complaining the entire time that they lionized this case. It was a 1905 case called Jacobson.
Oh, I know. Go ahead.
And all of a
Yes,
sudden,
it came up all the time.
that was all you had to do was
Yeah.
kind of wave around Jacobson from
Yeah.
1905, and that was it. And Jacobson basically said that a guy didn't want to get
A vaccine or something.
yeah, and he had to pay a $2 fine or something
Yes.
like that. And that became, okay, we can just destroy you.
We can do anything we want to your body
Yeah.
in an emergency.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't agree with much of what Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court says, but when he says, where was I when this became this towering presence,
Yes.
this case,
Yeah.
I tend to agree with him. Why all of a sudden did we just outsource or abdicate our fight against or our pushback? And where was the judicial branch pushing back on this?
Well, that's my question. Is this so much of the excesses that were really just hysteria? That's what they were. There's hysterics. How much of that is going to get solved by the courts? And how?
I don't know. I will tell you this. I've survived on 2 different cases, so that we're hopefully get to trial next year. But it's an issue that is very concerning to me. To hold them accountable and not to say, to do what was done. There was a Superior Court judge here in LA, James Chalfant. He issued an order at the trial court level, which the Court of Appeal basically invalidated a month later, 2 months later. And they did it without really grappling with it. It was basically, we're judges, we're not going to get in the way of Barbara Farrar.
I saw that. Yes.
And,
which is an insane thing for them to do.
well, that's what I mean. Can you imagine if you've got a malady, a disease, or an ailment, are you going to go to somebody who's a non-medical doctor and have them tell you what to do?
That's what we did in the LA County case.
Yeah.
That's what we did. And by the way, as it pertains to the state of California, let me frame it this way. If are you going to go to a pediatrician to get some advice on adult medicine? Because that's who was doing our state level public health, which is common because pediatricians do the vaccine policies.
Right.
And so they put pediatricians in these state level offices. They do not have the training or the judgment to make calls on adult medicine. I noticed that when I interviewed Peter Hotez, who I found to be a lovely guy, smart. I agree with 90% of what he was saying, but all of a sudden, at the very end of the interview, he went berserko on me about how he didn't want to get COVID because his brain would shrink, and I don't want my brain to shrink. And I was so shocked by him saying that. I'd read some data on it, and I thought, oh, he doesn't understand that happens to older adults whenever they get sick. You get a little brain shrink, and then it comes back.
Right.
And then it gets good, normalizes. He has no understanding of that because he's a pediatrician. It doesn't happen to kids. And I thought, oh, he's in a panic about this thing because he has no judgment about it. And that was the thing that went.
If everybody you see is under 10 years old,
yes,
then
it's a different. I wouldn't dare treat at that age because I don't know. I have no judgment. I don't know. I do it it's a very different training, a different experience. All right. So I don't think I answered your question.
You didn't answer my question, so I'm going back.
Yeah. The question is,
come on. What is the phenomena that is happening in America right now? Because I will tell you, the people were scratching their heads last week. 5 out of the 6 swing states, Biden is now losing.
Yes.
And
Trump is winning.
Now,
people could look at RFK and go, that's the problem. Because he is sucking up a lot of the...
he's winning amongst independents.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So, I'm an independent. I get the appeal. I get it.
And then he is dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. By the way, this is a guy who has spent his entire adult career doing environmental law
Yes.
at the highest level.
Effectively.
Yeah.
So his being called a conspiracy theorist is the same as the reporting on the gag order.
Correct.
It's bullshit.
Right.
Now, I had an experience.
And by the way, it's an ad hominem attack. For those who haven't taken high school logic, when you start to call somebody a conspiracy theorist as opposed to deal with their argument, all you're doing is attacking the person, not the argument.
And you've lost the argument.
Yeah. It's
Otherwise,
a fallacy.
why would you do that? Well, because they had so much success with it with Trump.
Right.
They loved doing it to him. And I noticed it. I went to a symposium at the White House, probably the second year of the Trump presidency or something, maybe the first year even. And it was on the opioid thing.
Right.
And I was very, very concerned about that then. And it was really interesting. They had cabinet level, like 6 of the, how many? The other 11 cabinet, 12? We had like 6. We had, Homeland Security. We had Jeff Sessions was there.
Right.
We had
the Attorney General. You had the Department of Health and Human Services.
We didn't have
right?
HHS. We didn't have Azar there, but we had
Commerce.
The neurosurgeon. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Who was his opponent in the primaries?
Yes, help me, somebody. God damn it. Anyway, really, I got to know him very well, and he's a good man. And
who, by the way, was always well thought of as a neurosurgeon.
Oh my God, yes.
He ran in the Republican.
Ben Carson.
Another flip.
Exactly. Then
what
all
is
of a
it?
sudden he became
Caleb. What?
Ben Carson.
Caleb. Ben Carson. Thank you very much,
Dr. Carson.
But in that, it was a day-long symposium about what to do, and a lot of really interesting things were presented. It was like 6 hours or something. And in there, Jeff Sessions sat down and he goes, I admired, his esteem went way up for me that day. He goes, because I've been doing this a long time with that crazy accent. And he goes, I know how to handle this. I'm going to stop this thing. I'm going to put a stop to the prescribing of the opiates. You watch me. In about 6 months, it's going to stop. You watch what I'm going to do. It's going to take care of it. And what did he do? He put the doctors that were killing people in jail. And he knew that when you don't have to do that for 2 or 3 doctors, and physicians freeze. They just become panicked. And it immediately stopped. That's when the prescribing of oral opiates ceased. It was Jeff Sessions that did it.
And you would never know that or recognize it because he was considered, the right-wing whack job.
He was a whack job. Not only that, this is the part that got my attention. All these incredible things were being presented all day long. At the end, unexpectedly, we didn't expect this, Trump marches in and goes to the front of the room and takes the mic. And he's out there just sort of talking and BSing. And the showman that he is, he goes, "Oh, Steve, you're in the front row. Steve, tell your story." He gets him up. The dude starts sobbing. He lost his son to opiates and this incredible story. He goes, we got to take care of this. This is one story. There's lots of... Steve sits down. He keeps talking. And he goes, I don't know what we do. He goes, some countries, they make the dealers pay the ultimate price for this. But I don't think we're going to do that. But we got to think of everything. Entire day symposium. The only thing the press reports is Trump says we should kill drug dealers. That is out of this incredible day. That is the only thing that's reported. Have you ever heard of Gelman amnesia?
Yes.
This is all Gelman amnesia on our part. Because Gelman, just for people, let me explain it let me have the camera here. So Dr. Gelman was a famous physicist, and every time he'd notice an article in the paper about physics, it was a million miles from accurate. It was just wrong. And he'd go, God, they cannot get physics. But then he'd go on to read politics and world affairs and assume that was all correct. It's all wrong. It's all off. All you need is an experience like I had in the East Room of the White House, or have them write a story about you. Then you see how far they are from the truth, or anything for that matter.
I've had that for 25 years. You do when I'm trying a high-profile case.
Yes,
I will be in the courtroom and I will spend the day there. I'll cross-examine a witness. Then I'll go back, I'll turn on the TV to see a recap, and it bears no resemblance to what actually happened in the courtroom.
All right, so I want to pick up there. We got to take a little bit of break here, but that to me is such a major, major, major problem. And my question is, are there remedies for this? Can we do something about it? And maybe Elon Musk has started something here.
I've got a lot to say on that, too.
All right, we'll come back with that. Mark Geragos, where do you want people to go? Website? And
Reasonable Doubt.
Reasonable doubt.
Reasonable
See, listen to the podcast, Reasonable Doubt. We'll be right back. If you're trying to figure out the right present for someone, you will not go wrong with gifting the most comfortable sheets, clothing, and accessories that your friends and family have ever felt. Of course, I'm talking about Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth has the softest and most comfortable sheets, blankets, towels, PJs, joggers, and more, guaranteed. Susan and I love them. In fact, we still have Cozy Earth sheets on our bed. I slept in them last night. I was thinking about how great they were. And look at this. I'm wearing one of their super comfortable t-shirts right now. I just can't get enough of Cozy Earth. Their sheets are durable, machine washable, and come with a 10-year warranty against defects. So no surprise that Cozy Earth's brand has been featured on Oprah's Favorite Things for 5 years in a row. Whether it's their luxury pajamas, super soft bedding, loungewear, or plush bath towels, you will love shopping and gift giving at Cozy Earth. Here's my gift to you this holiday season. Go to CozyEarth.com, enter code DREW to save 40%. That's CozyEarth.com with code DREW. CozyEarth.com, code DREW, save 40%. Susan and I have been looking for a nutrition-packed, great-tasting greens drink for a while. And then we tried our friends at Paleo Valley's Organic Super Greens, which is superior to what's out there on the market. Our friends at Paleo Valley, well, they think of everything, and they've created what's been called a magical green powerhouse. All three delicious varieties, pure unflavored, strawberry lemonade, and tropical, contain 23 certified organic, antioxidant-rich superfoods, including the highest quality spirulina. It's also free of cereal grasses, gluten, grains, soy, and dairy, and no added sugars or artificial sweeteners. And what's more, it delivers digestive enzymes, polyphenols, which are believed to burn fat, and 8 essential amino acids. Imagine the time, effort, and cost of trying to make this yourself. It's impossible. Head on over to drdrew.com/paleovalley, and you will get 15% off your first order. All the great products they have there, 15% off at drdrew.com/paleo, P-A-L-E-O. Thanksgiving is almost here, which means it's time for the best Genucel sale of the year. Just in time for the holidays, save over 60% off both of our personally tailored Genucel skincare packages at Genucel.com/Drew, so you can look your very best at all of your Thanksgiving gatherings. Look 10, 15, 20 years younger, guaranteed, with the best natural skincare anywhere. Take advantage of Genucel's best sale of the year and say goodbye to fine lines, crow's feet, puffiness, and dark spots. The Genucel experience is like no other, but don't take my word for it. You will look and feel your absolute best or your money back, no questions asked. So for results in 12 hours or less, Genucel's immediate effects is included for free. Plus, if you go to Genucel.com/Drew now, you'll get a free upgrade to priority shipping. That is Genucel.com/Drew, Genucel.com/Drew. Here with Mark Geragos. Reasonable Doubt is the podcast, and maybe we can take some calls a little later too.
I would love that. But you're right though about media matters.
Yes. So what remedies? What do we do about all these attacks? What about X? What about Musk?
What I was talking about this morning, and if what the lawsuit says is true. If they can show that it was manipulated.
Yes, which they have, but of course, X has all the access to that.
Of course they do. Yeah. And everybody has, if you read the commentators, especially the legal commentators, they've all almost uniformly said, well, why is he filing in Texas then? It's there's no reason to be in Texas unless he thinks it's a weak case.
It happened to him in Texas. Well, don't you have to file in Texas?
That's where he is.
Yeah, you have to do that, don't you?
He could go somewhere else, but why would he?
Yeah.
And by the way, now they're also diminishing the lawsuit by saying the attorney general who just came through his impeachment and was acquitted is joined in the fray, so to speak, and so that diminishes it.
So he's going, but he's going after criminal action, though, right?
He's investigating that.
That's a different question.
Right.
One's a civil suit, one's a criminal suit. Are they conflating those two things?
The civil suit is, as you say, this is what's so crazy. You can diminish it by throwing kind of the bricks at it and say, well, his venue is weak. Why would he be in Texas? Blah, blah, blah. My question is, if what he has alleged is true, and I have no reason to believe it isn't, it's a pretty stunning indictment of what was done.
Does it surprise you that they did
No,
that?
not
No,
at
that's
all.
the point. It's completely sound. There is no length to. You saw that. What was the guy that called up the woman that was calling the pizza service or something? Oh, shit, Caleb, you can help me with this. There was a guy, a podcaster, who actually called the reporter who went to his advertisers and said, "What are you doing?" Well, I just wanted them to be aware that you said. He goes, "I didn't say that."
Yeah.
What are you doing calling my advertiser? Well, I didn't. Well, I just wanted to make sure they knew. Make sure they knew. Is that your job as reporter?
By the way, it's the opposite of what journalism, what they teach in journalism.
Unless they,
schools, supposedly.
who knows what they're teaching now, right?
Well,
I worry about institutions these days.
You're talking about Dave
if you're
Portnoy?
going to,
Portnoy, yes,
Portnoy.
Portnoy. Yeah, exactly.
so
Thank you.
if you're going to have opinion journalism, that's fine. Just call it out for that, is kind of my opinion.
Yeah.
Don't say this is, our investigative report,
No.
which reveals blah, blah, blah.
This is
By
our
the
opinion.
way,
This is our
there
opinion.
was a case years ago in California, I know it well, where there was a action against Facebook for putting ads next to and supporting ISIS-style things. That got nowhere. But here he's got I think a tenable theory that they were basically manipulating the internal
system.
logarithms
Yeah.
in system in order to achieve what they wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
If that's the case, there's an issue there. That's a legitimate issue.
So as we see, and anybody that's in the public now just gets attacked, right?
Right.
Constantly. And a lot of it is social media, just random individuals, but oftentimes it's organizations like Media Matters.
Right.
And oftentimes, Gelman amnesia, it is filled with untruths and no opportunity to respond to it and no attempt to establish the truth. Are there going to be remedies for this? Are there remedies?
The only way is, I will tell you that from personal experience, the only way is if, once again, you get judges who are willing to look beyond kind of the knee-jerk reaction, which is, oh, it's a journalistic entity, therefore I'm just going to give them a pass.
But they're not journalistic entities, these social media platforms. They're just platforms that. What about the individuals that attack people?
That's the kind of interesting frontier that's got to be fought. So far, the platforms have been able to.
Oh, we got a dog here.
I do. The platforms have been able to wrap themselves up in kind of the immunities, if you will, and that's a problem. You can't get past that generally. There are certain things, and a very recent case where there's been lawsuits brought about the manipulation of social media and the addictive quality.
Yes.
And those have survived. If he finds in discovery that the things he's alleged are true, then that could. I can see. However, is to cloak the journalism with this idea of almost, you have to prove something that is almost impossible in order to get over a hurdle.
So this is back to your original question about how does Trump walk in a stadium and get a standing ovation? People are really sick of this stuff and being helpless against it.
Yeah.
And they're sick of companies that don't like their customers, that mistreat them or don't represent them or don't even market to them. They just seem to not like them. And the same thing is true of most media content. It's like they're disdaining all these people. It's the basket of deplorables kind of thing.
And by the way, one of the interesting things is there is a sense of community in that disaffection. So
Correct.
That is
It's creating parallel economies.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting to watch this unfold.
Yes.
And
What does that mean? What do you think we're going? Is it all the playing out of a fight for freedom? Is that what this is?
That's both sides claim. Obviously, it's a fight for democracy. It's a fight for the Constitution. I mean, the right will say we're originalists. We're hewing to the text of the Constitution. The left will say this is an existential fight for democracy as we know it. So both use the same bromides. But at the bottom line is, if you can't understand the fact that each of you are talking past each other.
Yes.
And that
And not hearing each other.
and not hearing,
Yeah.
and that you're only taking a position when your ox is getting gored, as the old expression is. And that's the only time you get worked up. Then you're never going to solve this.
I don't like that.
I know.
So if you had a magic wand, how would you get it moving towards solution?
My father used to have this philosophy. He was my hero and he was a hard charging DA. I always tell the joke. First 13 years of my life, I thought my first name was dumb and my middle name was shit, because that's all he ever called me. And but he had a philosophy and interesting, given where we are today, that the way to solve this was to adopt the military system of justice, where one day you're a defense lawyer, the next day you could be a prosecutor.
Right.
So you wouldn't become an ideologue.
Right.
The ideology was taken out of the system.
Yes.
And you were a cog in the system to either, if you're a defense, to advocate zealously. If you're the prosecution, it's to seek truth and justice, even if that means standing up and dismissing your case.
You could take his recommendation and sort of expand it to consuming media,
which is exactly why I gave that to you, because I knew you would go there. So.
Right. We should be consuming each other's media, which I always try to think to myself, what am I missing? Why can't I? How can somebody think that way? It's hard. It's very hard.
And that's
very hard.
I know that now you say, get out of your silos.
Yes.
And that's what it is. You can't just have conversations. You know who's great at this, in my opinion? Pete Buttigieg, because Pete will go on to Fox and he will engage.
Yeah.
What are you afraid of? If you're so confident, why I'm with it.
You want to reach the people that disagree with you. Those are exactly the ones you want to get to.
Exactly. And by the way, and I freely admit it's because basically my entire adult career has been in the adversarial system, but you can agree to disagree in a courtroom and then walk back out and be, that's a colleague.
Yes.
And that's how you get at least a higher understanding of what truth is.
Well, collegiality has broken down, right?
It's evaporated.
A little bit. Yeah, it's really bad in medicine now. Really bad.
Medicine is scary.
Yeah. Well, when you say that, I agree with you, but what are you thinking?
This idea, you and I have talked about this, the idea that you're going to invade the patient-physician privilege and what they can...
They've destroyed it.
Yes.
They've destroyed it.
Right.
I mean, back in the day when I was fighting hard to sort of preserve it, I just kept saying, imagine if they did that to the attorney-client.
Yeah,
imagine
if now in California, you've got the snitch rule, where you're supposed to snitch on a lawyer if you know he's doing something. All that's asking for is every single lawsuit, you're going to snitch on your opponent and use the state bar as a cudgel. You've got the fact that we're going to lower the requirements for the bar exam. Then now you've got what they're talking about, we're not even going to have a bar exam. Well, then you've can you imagine if you started doing that in medicine?
Oh, we're doing it.
Yeah.
The medical board is a cudgel. And being used as such with impunity and absolutely no concern for what it does to the practitioners. And they're trying to decide, how do they make criteria and how do they lower the bar? How do they make it easier for people to get in?
To get in, because we need more doctors.
We need more,
we need more physicians.
Right. Yep.
And we don't have physicians here. We don't have physicians there. Now we've got physicians assistants and we're going to let them do this.
Well, that's been the other thing. Somebody wants to get rid of doctors entirely.
Right. It's almost an attack on the profession.
Yeah. So I've taken the position lately that I've been fighting for the doctor-patient relationship. Then I was fighting for autonomy of physicians. Now I'm like, I didn't realize how, during COVID, my eyes were opened how bad it is. And I think we got to get it into the hands of the patient now. The patient has to have the power to get what he or she wants on their terms, whatever that is. That's why I've been working with the wellness company, because they want to give patients stuff and more access to things. That's what they need. They need more. There's things that there's no reason they shouldn't have access to.
It's so funny because I was talking with a doctor last night and I was complaining about without getting into the facts of it, I said, this is what the medication that they prescribe produced. So rather than figure out that medication and the side effect, they gave or prescribed a medication to deal with the side effect.
Of course.
Right?
We do that all the time.
Yeah. It's just, it's mind-boggling to me. But that's where we're at.
The other thing is, while we're moving all these, I remember I was on Anderson Cooper's show. Remember they used to have that round table?
Yes.
And Anna Navarre was there, and he was there, and they were talking about healthcare. And I said, well, when you put the physician extenders in, and they all went, physician extenders? Oh my God, what is that? Are you, what's wrong with you? I said, you haven't seen a physician extender yet? Very soon you will, because that's all you're going to see.
And that's all you're going to see. Less than 10 years ago.
Oh, easily, yeah, and that's all it is now. But what was I going to say about the? I also have noticed that pharmacists are extremely well trained biologists and clinicians. If they want to bring people up towards the patient, towards the front, pharmacists should be empowered to come forward.
By the way, when COVID started, and then they had the vaccines, the guy who talked me out of the mRNA was not a doctor. It was a pharmacist who said, no, Mark.
Not yet.
It, right?
Yeah. Turned out there's some issues there. So how about that?
I mean, it was interesting to me that, and I've always had such great respect for pharmacists because
they're being underdeployed. They have residencies now and programs. You can make them really clinically very astute and stuff. And I've been speaking to pharmacy groups lately, and
no kidding.
Yeah, and I just think that's an important thing. What about the Kathy Hochul thing and quarantines and all? What's going on there?
I will tell you that I don't.
This is in New York State. The governor of New York was challenged in court over this right to quarantine, I guess.
Right.
Not right to lockdown, right to quarantine sick people, which maybe I don't understand quite what's at issue, but I'd kind of defend her right to do that. Well, I don't have a problem with quarantining sick people if we need to.
Well, that was always, wasn't that?
That's what we did for thousands of years. Right.
That's what we did.
And no one ever called into question that. Society or well people.
Right.
That was never an idea. Never. Yeah. It didn't do it. Anyway, I can get into that all day. But so what was at issue there? They just restored the old public health standard that sick people can be held.
Right. And then that became a political football once again because God forbid.
The excesses. And I understand. I'm concerned about the excesses too. I get it because that could be used to do the quarantine of well people to see if they're sick. You know what I mean? That's what she used it for, which was not right.
And you can also say, well, that we're doing it we're doing it for their own protection.
We're doing it for the good of the whole.
Right. Exactly.
It's just so easy to go there. And again, this is what I kept chanting. The risk reward is not being contemplated. They don't know how to do that. They're pediatricians, or they're not doctors, or they've never been put in this position before. Or I've got a bunch of callers. I hope they have questions for you.
Okay, well,
let's see what we got.
We'll see. Maybe they got questions for you, and I'll just chime in.
We will see. This is the Swamp. Well, maybe the Swamp can answer your questions about the appeal in the stadiums for President Trump.
Yes, I would like that.
Give me a second here. Swamp,
hello.
You're on.
Hey there. What's up, Dr. Drew?
How are you, man?
So, wow, attorneys like to talk, huh?
That's why he's here.
We often joke we get paid by the word,
especially from New York. I'm Italian. He's Greek. It's pretty much the same thing. But
he's Armenian. Armenian.
Drop the I and made a Greek out.
Yeah, that too. That too. We've talked about this a bunch of times, and I brought it up to you about the time that you spoke about you're in this quote funk. I had COVID 3 times, never got the vaccination, but was a college dual sport college athlete and a vert skater. As a kid, and I don't know if the things that are going on are a result of the COVID or is it long-term head trauma. And I know it's a fluid thing, which is why I keep asking you the same question, because when you said it, I kind of took a real big step back and was like, wow, he's in a funk and he doesn't know why. And is it a COVID thing? Is there any new data that you've received on that.
Be very more specific with me.
Well,
Are you talking about the cloudiness thing? Or are you talking about depression?
Yes, and yes.
So the answer, of course, is yes and yes. So not the third yes, but the yes and yes. So yes, they're seeing a lot. They're learning a lot more about long COVID. Even nasty long COVID stuff seems to resolve within 3 years. Though I've seen some vaccine long COVID that seems to be going longer. So I don't know exactly what it is. Does seem to be viral persistence. There was a theory that some of that viral persistence was causing this change in the life cycle of inflammatory cells in the central nervous system, which always fit for me what was going on.
Right.
And then we don't know, there's a lot of still question marks about, vaccine effects, and then the lingering effects of the lockdown and I just dropped off the,
Well, you know what? I would jump in.
Well,
I have made the anecdotal observation. Is there an exacerbation of mental illness?
oh my God, yes.
That's
There's
where I'm going
exacerbation of
with
mental illness from COVID, for sure. Look, there's a famous psychiatrist in the early 20th century named Menninger. And at the end of the 1918 flu, he made a statement in like 1920, and he said, look, I think almost everything I'm seeing now is related to COVID. I'm related to the 1918 flu. That he saw, and he listed a whole series of psychiatric conditions, not just depression. And he said, I think this is all related to that flu. And so, yes, of course. I mean, this thing did have a lot of central nervous system activity, and it does, of course, affect our moods for sure. Whether it's causing other things, whether it's causing bipolar or thought disorders and things, I don't think so. But people are using more substances, and that's causing more of these thought problems other conditions, including mood and anxiety.
And I agree, because I do have, two, one high school kid and one in college. And I feel like we lost an entire generation of social skills and mental aspects and et cetera, because they just didn't experience what you and I did as a high school junior or senior.
If you look back, we should put together, Caleb or Susan, we should put together a montage one of these days of me back in the early days of COVID going, oh my God, we are sacrificing 8 to 15-year-olds. We are sacrificing them.
Yeah.
They are going to be destroyed cognitively, destroyed developmentally, destroyed in terms of their mood. It just was so predictable, and yet it went on and on and on without concern.
Without any justification.
Without concern. And you can see now the difference between a Florida and a Tennessee and a California in terms of what's happening with the kids. It's just obvious.
You're absolutely right, and there's just the cognitive ability to speak in public or interact face to face. To your point, in the different states, is
you know
palpable.
what I keep hoping, the people who we spoke to somebody just recently. Susan, who did we have as a guest that was talking about this issue about education? Jennifer Say, who was championing all this. And I said to her, and I'll say it to you, which is that I hope they get pissed. They should be furious at what government and well-meaning officials did to them. And they should really think about that and become, frankly, extreme advocates for autonomy and freedom and, individualized medicine and that sort of thing.
So is it a cultural, biological? Have you done
in terms of why the mood problem?
Yeah.
It is neurological from the COVID. We don't know the full impact of the vaccine yet. I think that's probably more sporadic. It is developmental. It is just because kids develop in interaction with peers, not with parents. It is cognitive. I mean, I was telling Jennifer Says a story that Susan got sick of me saying, and I'll say it to Mark just because he's here, which was when the Ukrainian war broke out. there was a ton of reporters at the Polish border interviewing the Ukrainian women with their children coming across the Ukrainian border. And they put a microphone in every woman's face. And I heard this interview a ton of times. It was the same interview. What do you think? Horrible. Our sons, our husbands, our fathers are back there fighting. This is a catastrophe. Then they would say in the next breath, but these kids, our kids, they've been out of school for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We have to get them back in school now. 2 weeks. In school in a country where they don't speak the language. It's that important. Just in school, immediately, we understand how important that is. 2 years we languished without saying, I'm sorry to what we did to a whole generation.
Just wild.
Wild. And so then there's their emotional development. Look, you tell a 9-year-old, incoming nuclear weapon, shelter in place. And if you don't do what we're telling you to do, don't leave the confines of your room, you're going to kill your family. What do you think that's going to do to a 9-year-old? They're going to grow up with a healthy, bright attitude towards the future? I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then make everything cost so damn much. So now they're worried about that, which, again, that's the generation coming up is the one that sees it and feels it. Anyway, this is Marie. We'll see what Marie's got on her mind here. Thank you, Swamp. Always good to talk to you.
Ukrainian women.
That's right. My heritage, that's where my family is from.
I'm well aware.
Marie, what you got there? Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
Sir, hey, Mr. Dr. Drew. I know. And you have this topic, and I thought, oh my God, I could have some fun because.
Oh, good. Go.
I just wondered, in COVID camp, sir, do they have television? Am I allowed to be on the internet? In COVID
camp.
Whatever.
You mean when they were at school? School for COVID? School for COVID?
Whatever kind of camp. What have they got going here? Do I have to be re-educated or what is this?
Oh, COVID camp meaning being quarantined and then
in Kathy Hochul's camps for quarantines. Will you be reprogrammed at those camps? Is that the question?
Yes, because you know what?
Yeah.
I have a very open mind, and I am vaccinated, by the way. I've had 2 of the shots, and yes, I've been taking. I've been taking aspirin, and eating garlic. Garlic is my savior. But
good, take care of yourself. I'm all for it.
I try to. You're married, aren't you, Dr. Drew?
Yes.
Because I like your voice.
Flip to Susan's picture. Here's Susan. Here's her picture. Wait, there she is.
There, I'll be your friend, Susan. I'll be your friend. Don't beat up on me. Don't. So anyway, you've heard.
There's a dog. There's a dog in our picture.
You can have him.
See this? This is a dog. Or Rex wants to get in on everything. So what's the question, Marie?
Hey. So television or the internet? It is a must in the COVID camp. A must. Yeah.
All right, we'll put that recommendation through to Governor Hochul. We'll see if she can make a suggestion box. That's fantastic.
We'll make a clip and send it to her.
Michael, what's going on there? You got to unmute, of course, when you get up. This is good fun. Hey, Michael.
Dr. Drew, thanks for taking my time, and thank you for hosting this. On the mental capacity, I feel like the executive function was mostly affected by COVID, just because of the irrational decisions that people started making, life choices, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was just my experience. Yeah. I did not get the vaccine because my doctors recommended I didn't, because my immune system is already compromised from environmental toxins. And thankfully, I didn't take it. And in my own medical journal that I'm going to be presenting to the Veterans Administration eventually, I'm trying to find a link between the mRNA and the MS drugs that were developed over the past 20 years, because they were
like
the MS drugs are immunosuppressant.
Sure, in specific ways, most of them. In specific ways,
Correct.
Most of them, yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
And
What do you do? It's Michael. What does Michael do?
Michael is
Michael, can you be more specific besides being a dissident? I feel your pain as a dissident, but
well, let's talk about 1996, 1997. I'm listening to Dr. Drew talk about tiny penile papules, in high school.
Good.
And then
Pearly
I go on Pearly. There you go. And then public accounting for 10 years after university. And then I started and founded a bunch of different companies in my 30s. And now I'm in my 40s recovering from environmental toxins.
Okay.
Wow. Quite a career.
Yeah, it's nice. Well, listen, is that it, Michael? Is that just a statement, really?
Actually,
you had a question about executive function.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The next step that I'm going to try and take, and I'm trying to figure this out with my doctors, is my dad was exposed to Agent Orange, and we are trying to figure it out if my genetics were changed as a result of that to make me more.
I was going to say the same. Yeah. So that was obviously the exposure was prior to you being conceived.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Correct.
Listen, because Michael,
yes.
Is there a website or anything you want to refer people to find out more about what you're doing?
Actually, Mr. Geragos, I actually reached out to your firm because I'm in the process of finding counsel for a bunch of different areas. So I hope to hear from your firm in the near future. I just did that while we were on the space. So thank you.
All right, beautiful. He'll look forward to hearing from you. Fantastic.
You picked the right guy.
Yeah. So
tell me something.
I'll tell you something. Okay. I will do that.
If you think it was, we go back to all of the various theories. Do you think that COVID itself, as opposed to, let's just put aside the vaccination,
the virus itself. Well, when you say the virus itself, it's been many different things across these few years. It's evolved. Yeah.
And has there been, in your opinion, studies that have looked at the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year effects? And
yes.
What are they saying?
The long COVID stuff is mostly going on out about a year or 2 years.
What qualifies as long COVID?
Well, it's a good question. I think mostly they're looking at cognitive problems. Either there are several different things. It is exercise intolerance, like real severe intolerance, like you can't walk across the street. It is cognitive, real serious fogginess where you can't function at work for long periods of time, a lot of drowsiness and weakness, that kind of thing. And those are the big three. There's a few other things that get in there. And most of those studies that I've seen are about a year or maybe 2 years.
So meaning a year out from.
Yes, they're still having these symptoms, 2 years still having these symptoms. And some of them, same with the vaccine. The vaccine causes the same thing. What I've seen recently is studies 3 years out on taste and smell saying it gets better, which is sort of evidence that we could hope that some of these neurological symptoms are going to improve from the long COVID too.
And
although the mechanism is probably different, but okay.
Why?
Well, they thought on the sense of smell was it was vasculopathy that damaged the nerve. When it's the long COVID, I think it's continued inflammation by a certain particular cell, viral persistence.
So is there any, has anybody distinguished, because I would assume with the mass vaccination that you can't distinguish between, or maybe you can, the mRNA versus the non-mRNA? Have they done studies as to that?
On who gets into trouble?
Yeah.
It looks like the studies I've seen, the best I can summarize that, answer your question, is that the spike protein's the problem, it seems like. Though people are trying to make it the DNA plasmids and the liquid nanoparticles and the charge on the liquid nanoparticles. There's all these theories about things that could hurt you. But really the only consistent thing is the spike protein. And if that's around in high quantities, it seems to cause problems. and the mRNA produces more spike for longer periods of time in many people.
So then the problems with the mRNA
seem to be more.
So it's amplified.
Amplified, I think is a good way to say it. Okay. But we do see it from the other vaccines too, right? The ones that are producing the spike protein, that's the problem. Where was I going with all this? Back to the outcome from the vaccine, though, that has been very concerning lately, is that the incidence of myocarditis in young males, I mean, it's all over the place. I've seen everything from every male has it to it's 1 in 10,000 to it's 1 in 800. Let's say it's 1 in 5,000.
What was it before COVID was a thing?
The myocarditis from viruses or from a vaccine? Or just in the population generally? In the
population generally.
It was that whenever my kids got sick, I was worried about that as the outcome, and you almost never saw it. I mean, like maybe 1 in 100,000, something like that.
Was Hank Gathers myocarditis? Do you remember the basketball player, LMU?
You mean
maybe it was that's the wrong name. It was an LMU basketball player who had died on the court. Remember this?
And it was a cocaine thing? You're not talking about?
No, that was Len Bias.
Len Bias. Okay. No, I don't remember the Hank Gathers thing. I do remember there being another one that died, but that I don't know, because that also we could look it up really quick. But it could have been congenital. That's usually, let's put it this way. Back in the day, when an athlete died on the court, you'd go, oh, it's hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or congenital heart disease. Okay. Almost without exception. Rarely it'd be some consequence of myocarditis down the road. But it's just unheard of. To have myocarditis was
why would you worry about it for the kids?
Now?
No, then.
Oh, because it's so dreaded. It's just the dreaded, mild viruses can... exceedingly rare. Like nutty that I would worry about it. Crazy that I would worry about it.
So we're talking
1 in 100,000, 1 in half a million or something like that. Okay. And when it started happening, they were like, oh, it's just mild. Myocarditis is a emergency in a young person. They can die suddenly from an arrhythmia with myocarditis.
And how does it actually happen?
You get inflammation of the heart muscle. Okay. And when the heart muscle is inflamed, it can become irregular. It can produce electrical discharges that can stop the heart, essentially, or it can conduct electricity abnormally.
Is it connected to AFib?
It can be, but we're seeing more of other supraventricular arrhythmias, not necessarily atrial fib, but lots of other rapid rhythm disturbances.
And is that now something that you see more often as opposed to?
Not so much more often that back before COVID, when somebody in their 40s or 30s would come in with palpitations, we'd pat them on the knee and go, just don't even worry about it. It's PVCs. Now we're going, should we get a cardiac MRI? Should we see if it's, should we have to do a cardiac monitor? Because it's so common now.
If somebody's worried, what do they do? How do they take
we do go two different directions. One is get a cardiac MRI to see if there's any myocarditis, and the other is to get a continuous cardiac monitor to see what the heart's actually doing. And many people,
the monitor actually pick it up?
It'll pick up not the myocarditis, but the rhythm problems. Okay, the myocarditis may be causing.
Okay, so then you reverse engineer from the rhythm problem?
Well, oftentimes people aren't doing that, because what they do is they just look at the overall heart function going, it's solid. Even if it is myocarditis, it's just causing rhythm problems. So I don't really need to know.
Would that show this?
Not really, no.
How come?
It's an inflammation. It's a local inflammation. You can see it on MRI, but here's the troublesome part. There was an article in Circulation, which is a major cardiological journal, that was out of, I think, Hong Kong, that showed of all these kids that got myocarditis, half of them had persistent inflammation. I think it was at a year or 6, I think it was a year, the year out. That is breathtaking information. And it was a couple of dozen kids, right? So it's 1 out of 800 or 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 5,000 that get it. So people went, oh, it was only 32 kids. I mean, what's the big deal? How many of those kids would have been hospitalized with COVID or gotten chronic medical disorder, but of potentially life-threatening importance from COVID? The answer is 0.
Wow.
0.
So that's where you can say,
that's where I'm worried.
COVID,
But it's not only is it the mRNA vaccine, it's doing it, yes, it's rare, but it's even rarer to get into serious trouble in that age group with no antecedents, with no other medical problems from COVID. So so why are we pushing it in that age group? They should take it if their doctor wants them to take it or they want to take it, but to mandate it, see, I think where are really going to get involved is where some college kids end up with serious life-threatening long-term problems because of mandated vaccine that did not protect them from anything relevant. It didn't prevent transmission,
right?
And it wasn't meaningful to that age group at all.
Well, that's
in terms
why
of getting
emergency
COVID.
authorizations are EUAs
remain,
right?
And there hasn't been full approval.
Right.
And even with full approval, they'd still have tons of protection. But I don't see how the universities are going to be protected from mandates that bioethicists around the globe said, I don't think you have the data to do this. And they were fired. There's a famous case of Aaron Cariotti. He was the head of, his story.
Right, I do.
He was a decorated psychiatrist, psychiatric teacher at University of California, Irvine, head of their bioethics department for years. When they came up with the mandate, he raised his hand and says, I don't think you have the data to justify a mandate. You can't bioethically require people to do something that has not significant benefit and maybe some real harm. He was fired.
Yeah.
And now he's a plaintiff in Biden versus Missouri.
Right.
And that's before the Supreme Court now. How do you think that's going to go?
I think that the Supreme Court is going to rule that the district court was right. And
refuse to hear it then?
Yeah.
Just refuse to hear it.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Then what happens?
Then it becomes the Court of Appeal decision, basically.
But I mean, then what does that mean?
Well, they can sidestep legally or procedurally, I should say, by just mooting it, so to speak. But I don't know that they'll do it. I'm just interested in watching procedurally how this unfolds.
But let's say it goes back to the Court of Appeals as their decision stands.
Right. If
what does that mean for the country? What does that mean for people what does it mean for these mandates? What does this all mean?
I don't think it has any realistic impact on the mandates. I think that it has more to do with the idea of manipulation,
social media
information through social media.
And so there'll be new law then, or the people.
I don't know that there'd even be new law. I think you would have causes of action from the various people who were targeted. I mean, you were
right.
Somebody exactly, and I may have you as a plaintiff.
Let's do it. Let's do this because I think we have an obligation to.
Well, you
see
were
this stuff
tagged
through.
how many times?
Oh my goodness, I can't even count. And all Gelman amnesia stuff, all either carefully edited so it was twisted. Look, I made a comment about a Chinese bot 2 days ago and immediately got attacked with well edited videos and things. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Because it might be more than just our government in there right. manipulating things. So it's Susan loved that. She is a CCP.
Yeah, I was going to say this is right up her alley.
Oh, but Mark and I worked together at the beginning of the Dr. Droops deal, and we never figured out who that mofo was. But and I'm still wondering why we can't find out.
Well,
Mark?
how would you find out?
I want to know who that guy was.
But how would you do it? I mean, he said
we tried.
Yeah,
we tried. We just hit.
We couldn't. Well, I kind of have an idea, but it's like, don't you think YouTube should tell us who did that hit piece on us?
They have no obligation.
I mean, I think that it's like Kelly said. I don't like to take advice from people that I don't know who it is. Like I'll have a conversation with you if I know who you are. And it's just it's still, they're still anonymous and their video's still up there. But anyways, Mark and I went down the AI bot thing with YouTube for a while, and he knows what I've been through with that.
I watched it. I had a front row seat.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that video, so that video carefully cut out what I said at the end of every comment where I was being a little hubristic and excessive. I just said, look, just listen to the CDC, listen to Fauci, they'll get us through this every single time.
I remember.
Now, That clip, that part has emerged as, you see how wrong he was? He shouldn't have said anything about the CDC or Dr. Fauci. They're adulterated. So yeah, I didn't get everything all right all the time. I did not. And
well, who does?
Nobody. And I evolved. There was a great shoot. I retweeted something. Oh, well, I can't get on it right now. But there was a retweet of something about evolution, about changing thoughts, and it was from a famous author, and about how that's such a glorious thing to change your opinion and evolve your thinking. That's what we do all the time.
You're supposed to.
We're supposed to ascend to the truth.
That is the scientific method.
100%.
Last time I looked,
Well, this idea that there is a truth is, no, there is no truth. There is an approximation of the truth that we get through the scientific method, which is the best method we have found so far to help us approximate the truth. But it has all been highly adulterated recently.
That goes back. We could go all the way back.
There it is. Changing your mind is probably one of the most beautiful things people can do. And I've changed my mind about a lot of things over the years. And I said, yep. I said, that's it. There it is. It was Monica Gandhi put that up. So, all right, my friend. Well, we have abused your time sufficiently. It's always a pleasure.
Great to see you.
He was really shocked to see you came into studio.
I was shocked that Susan required you to, number one.
No, he's our first guest, in-house studio.
I love being the first guest.
Yeah, and he lives near us, and he's.
Secondly, that she was able to persuade you to do it. I mean, persuading the persuader is pretty impressive. I sort of didn't think about it till you were driving in. I was like, what are you doing? You've made it. He doesn't come in for anybody. What have you done here?
But you know what? You look really good on camera, and it was nice. The shot looks good, and I think we'll keep this.
I enjoyed coming up here, and I will tell Jake that I saw where his video used to be.
We'll tell Paulette where it ended
I know.
up. So she'll be more interested in the fact that he played conservatively 700 hours of Call of Duty up here in this room.
Thank you.
All right, my friend. He's got to go. We'll let him go. I will let me wrap up here. Let's put you can go. I appreciate it. He's got to be somewhere. Yep. There we go. Samus Bruner in here tomorrow with Dr. Victory. Steve-O is going to be in on the first. Are we going to take Wednesday and Thursday off, Susan? We're not going to do those from Austin? Is that correct?
No, we're not going to do it from Austin.
Oh, well, see, it's on my schedule. Tom Renz comes back on December 4th. He's been around lately with some interesting stuff. Nicole and Jemmy, whom, if you know...
But we have Steve-O on Friday, so that's why we're not doing Tuesday and Wednesday. Right. He'll be in studio as well.
Which is crazy. And Nicole and Jemmy has one of the most popular Instagram sites out there where she puts all these pathology specimens. She's an autopsy technician, is very knowledgeable about pathology, and is very committed to medical education of the public. And she has a similar thought to I do, is you should know this stuff. Why don't you know it? I've sort of expanded that little philosophy to thinking, not only should you know it, you should have access to things you need cheaply and easily, that you could easily understand how to use on your own without going to the emergency room or the urgent care or even telehealth, though telehealth can be an important part of helping you answer questions about what you should and shouldn't be doing. I'm a very supporter of that. And then Ed Dowd in here on December 6th with Dr. Kelly Victory again. And Ed, of course, always giving us wild updates to think about in his data. I do know that the Society of Actuarials has come up with some grave concerns. And I want to talk about where Ed gets attacked. He gets attacked all the time for all kinds of things, and help understand what that is and where that's coming from and how he addresses that. Susan wants to
also, I want to mention a shout out to our sponsors. TWC is having Cyber Monday sale. So last day to get your discounts at drdrew.com/TWC.
Oh.
Get your emergency kit under that Christmas tree for the one you love.
And by the way, what is their sleep product called? Restful Sleep or something?
Yes.
It is the best. I'm sort of a supplement skeptic by nature. So I have to see the data. I have to really kind of get my head around that you're doing something with it. This is the most effective sleep product I've ever come across. I'm a long-term melatonin user. I don't like it. It makes me fall asleep quickly, but then it wakes me up after 5 hours. This stuff has ashwagandha and some other things in it that help with the hypothalamic axis, cycling and sleep. I am I can't tell you how impressed I am with this product.
Yeah.
Is it called Restful Sleep? You want to look it up real quick?
I think so. Go to drdrew.com/TWC.
I made Douglas use it. I made you use it. Did you try it yet?
Yes, I did.
Did it help?
And melatonin makes me very sleepy in the morning.
You take 1 or 2?
I took 2.
Yeah, and it worked, right?
It worked great.
We have these rings that monitor our sleep, and so I've seen the objective results of it.
Your Aura ring.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed.
Yeah, it works.
I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody. I don't know for sure. The data is there that it is effective. It is effective in me, that's for sure, and worth a try if you're having any kind of sleep.
There it is. Thank you. Restful sleep.
Restful sleep. Okay.
I think that's what it says.
Is that what it says? Oh,
yes. Yeah, that's what it's called.
It said restful sleep. Yeah. All right. Do you have sleep problems? I recommend it.
He can't sleep. He has a new baby.
Yeah. My sleep problems
don't rub
more
it
to do
Drew.
with baby. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. I get it.
My wife is texting me right now during the show. She's like, "I'm ready for bed. It's time to go to sleep."
We'll get you out of here.
Oh, poor baby.
And then our friends at Paleo Valley, of course,
she's working hard.
Have been great. And
I bet. But listen. Just head on over to all our sponsors. Our sponsor page is at drdrew.com/sponsors. So get all
a lot
your
of good discounts
there. For holiday.
Yeah, I highly suggest going there today, especially because we're like Cyber Monday deals and all throughout this week. Like, go get those coupon codes. There are some big ones there. Some of them do like 40% off with these coupon codes. So go to drdrew.com/sponsors very fast now.
Great. Yeah. So all we've been
get your toothbrush and get your teeth whitening kit. We have some great Christmas gifts over there.
Genucel, Paleo
But
Valley,
you got to get an emergency kit for your family.
We are going through the bone broth like ridiculous, and we need to get more. We go through so much of that. All right. So anyway, we stand by the people who stand by us, and we're very, very fortunate that way. And so I feel very, very, very privileged that we are in business with good people who create good products and who like their customers and want to serve them. So that is sort of a privilege to be a part of that. So here we are. We thank you all for being here. We will be in tomorrow early with Kelly and Dr. Seamus Bruner.
Yes, we will.
At noontime Pacific, and then
3 p.m. Eastern.
3 p.m. Eastern. And on Friday, when we return, will also be a noontime visit, correct?
Yes, with Steve-O. We're going to use the studio again.
And then we'll go back to a regular schedule.
We're going to have our own cameras on Friday. So.
We'll have them by then?
Yes.
Well,
we're borrowing these today. Caleb he had some excitement today, but he needs to go to bed now. So
very quickly, next week, though, is going to be on the 4th, 5th, and 6th is actually a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, rather than a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because Thursday I'm having a shoulder procedure. So I'll tell you all about that. So, and that's good slate of guests there on that week. So we will see.
We're all set.
We'll see you then. Thank you. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help. All right, breast milk still flowing. 25-year-old female had a daughter 6 years ago, breastfed for around a year. Haven't had any pregnancy or miscarriages. I'm not on birth control. I'm healthy, 150 pounds. 3 years have gone by, and if I squeeze my breast, I still express white breast milk. It will shoot out pretty far. My husband does not squeeze or suck on them extensively, so I don't think that he's stimulating production. She's looked into all this. This is good. It's not really something that concerns me per se. I'm more curious why it hasn't stopped after 3 years. I figured the milk would eventually dry up. Your milk is dried up. It's just you're still producing a small amount. But I mean, that's just the way. It's not like she has a full production of milk. It's your taint is burning. The taint is burning.